Hello, how are you today? We are going to begin our chapter 8, and we're going to be working with tables and forms. Uh, let's go ahead and begin with the PowerPoints and just kind of take a brief walkthrough. And again, I'm going to be elaborating more on certain specific things as we progress. So our main goals are to work with tables and forms, and and essentially get that working on our lab one, and of course on your own website through your discussions. So we want to create form elements and implement a submit button, and then of course tables, table rows, table headers, table data, and then table caption is important. Uh, so we want tables to be able to relate information. Now, however, here's the thing: is tables kind of have a bad rap in the accessibility area because people that have sight issues, the screen readers are not able to handle them as well. However, they have fixed that from now. They have fixed that by implementing certain parts. They fixed that on the table reader side, or the screen reader side. So it's not as big of an issue. However, it's still kind of a touchy subject. So when you use tables, try to only have tables for the reason why the tables exist, and that's just to group information together. Uh, Individuals use tables a lot to create their whole website. uh, so we don't want to build a whole website using tables. That's one thing, or web page, not website, web page. That's kind of counterintuitive to having cascades down. Everything that we have with our HTML tags, and also tables are really useful for being able to take the data and apply it inside of a spreadsheet and whatnot, because the tags for tables have the ability to cross different types of technology such as Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. All these technologies know about standard tables with HTML and are able to work with them. That means like a user can come in and let's say for example the tables that I put in your assignments. A user can come in and copy this whole table, paste it into Word, and be reasonably assured that it would look somewhat the same. It's not going to be exact, but it's pretty close. So our roadmap is to create some tables, apply styles to it in our CSS, and then of course create uh, a form for data collection. Now with tables, tables have some complexity to it because you know it gets confusing when you look at the code of a table. And let me give you an example. Let's talk about the table that I have here. When I build these tables, I go into the edit of Canvas, and I can actually go directly to the source code of this portion of the page to edit that the interior part of this web page with HTML. So the table that we have starts with this table heading, and this is the complexity of the code. All of this code, all of that, and not code, uh, markup. Well, okay, code, markup language. That's all for the table. It's a lot. So we have a lot of tools that allow us to create tables very easily, because I can work with the tools in the editor that are available to me for the tables. I can actually modify the table and insert tables in here. And then I can also go in and refine the tables by modifying the actual code of it. Uh, so the standardization is important, and it also allows for your web page to be targeted by data scrapers, uh, cataloging your web page, etc., etc. You know, artificial intelligence can use that data and refer to it and share a link to it, depending on what kind of data that you're sharing. Uh, you know, a lot of different uses for data and tables. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the PowerPoint, kind of continue on down with it. So we got header cells, data cells, we got rows and columns. A cell is the term used for the particular data that's inside of a row column intersection. So example here, row 1, column 1, that's the cell. The cell down here is for row 4, column 4. And then this whole thing is the table. Now, everything is nested, so if you want a row, you've got to nest it within your table tags. If you want a header, that's got to be nested within your table tags. For every table row, you're going to have some table data that you use these tags for your columns, the data actually in the row. And then of course you have a header area for your table, and a body and a footer. So the table tags, you can have simplistic, just a table, TR and TD tags. To have a table, these are the only tags you really actually need. But one thing with tables is the table border, that you can modify. You can modify the table border, you can change the color, you can decide not to show a border. And then of course with a table header, that's going to be the head of that particular column within your rows. Now here's where we get into a little bit of the accessibility portion of a table. A caption tag helps screen readers. And of course, this is after you add the caption tag after you insert the table tag. So we have our caption, our table, and our table border, and all of those are shown. And what else do we got? ID attribute, a unique ID for the table, that's for CSS. That we can assign a specific named ID to the table so that we can reference the table in our styling sheets and apply border, background color, all kinds of different things that we can apply to the CSS, the styling of the table. Including things as how long are the columns, how long are the rows. And you can actually merge portions of the table as well. You know, merge one column into another and make one full data cell from the two data cells that you merge together. So again, this goes to, you know, hey, only use a table when you're organizing data. Don't use it to create a web page. And use your caption. And I think we are ready to kind of play around with tables now. Let's go ahead and, well, let's talk about this border thing. So the borders are a little bit of a stinker when it comes to tables, because sometimes you can have the table appear to use double lines. So when you're styling it, you can collapse the border so that you don't have the double lines. Uh, so, well, it, that can kind of get a little silly, but you're going to want to use the collapsed border styling when you first begin, for pretty much every table that you create, because you don't want dual lines and it just makes things more complicated. And the reason for this is because each cell in the table has its own border. So to give an example of that, number one, we see in this example that there's a double border. Whoops. There's a double border between this right here, these guys. That I would probably want to fix, but if you don't have the collapsed border, every cell, so this cell will have a border, this cell right here would have a border, and then there would be two lines in between when you have your initial border. And that's a little bit on the silly side. So since every cell can have its own border, when the cells are shown together, you'll have two borders in between them, and then a little space, and yeah, it's not appealing, and it's kind of annoying actually. But that's one way you can get beyond that. All right, here's a good example of a table. Notice that they are only allowing a table border. They're not allowing cell borders. And you can set the border of every cell, and then you can have it be a collapsed border to not allow or to not have the double border issue. Here's another example. We have the table header in black up there. And then data, rows and columns, as we would expect. Now let's get on to, we're going to be playing around with this here, so I'm going to move forward into forms. Because of course we're going to be doing this in lab 1, so we'll talk about it as we go. Now, how does information get collected from users and from a web page? And that is with forms. A form is something that we put on a web page, and inside of it we can have entry controls. Text entry, check boxes, drop down menus. That's what we call a form. And within a form tag, we can have those text boxes, drop down menus, check boxes, buttons. That's what the form tag is for entry, data entry from the user. And you guys, hey, I'm pretty sure by now that you've been on a website using a form with a submit button. That's what we're going to be building today. Now, of course, it is with the form tag, and we have to have our ending form tag. And then within those, we can have some inputs. We can have some text inputs or some kind of input that the user implements. It could be checkboxes, text entry, And then we would have labels to label the text entry and the checkboxes. So labels are not something an action happens on. It's just labeling an entry control. And when we do the input tag, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we have an input, and then we set the type of that input for what kind of input it is. In this example, we have input type radio, input type checkbox. We have a reset button, a submit button. So input types, there are different input types for HTML. And in fact, let's actually let's look at see what W3 Schools has for that. HTML input controls W3. HTML input types. Okay, see there's a lot. You can enter colors, you can enter dates, you can enter emails, files, images. The hidden one, this hidden one is used for some, is used to get around some. Well, I'm not going to go into that. That one, just ignore. You don't need to worry about that. That's if you decide to go into JavaScript and other things. But sometimes we will take on a website and create a hidden input and put data in there that the user can't see so that we can use that data there on the page just for like memory, RAM, but on the page just to make some things easier. So the hidden is not as something that you're really ever going to use. We can have images that we upload, numbers, password. Now this input type password, it allows for when you type in the password, it'll show the asterisk. A radio button, those are the little dots that you kind of like a checkbox. Radios and checkboxes are pretty much the same. And then we have buttons, reset, submit. We have telephone entries. This one is the most common one that you'll see, and that's text input. Say you need to input your first name, your last name. Ones that expect a URL of some type. And then, the ones that you'll mostly use are, the buttons, the text input, the numerical value inputs, maybe the date, the color, depends. If you're building a website or something where you need to get the color from the user, checkboxes, and then of course date, email, file. If you need somebody to upload a file, that one's good. Then of course you would store the file in a database. However, that is a sophistication that we're not going to be. That's for higher level JavaScript course that we have, where you'll be. Actually, we do that in PHP. That's 300 level course. So you're going to get a good feel for inputs and how to work with them. And we've got labels, input, label, input. So let's look at that. Here's the code. Label, that's this guy right here. Input, text, that's this guy right here. And then another label, this guy, and then input, that's this guy, and then our submit button that we have here. And notice how the form, we begin, and then the action is where's the data gonna go? Where's that data gonna go when you're done with submitting it? And it could go to a server-sided script that stores that data in a database. It could go to another web page that uses that data for something. It could be simply, printed back, but the most common form of the data is to send it to a database through a server-sided script. Okay, we can assign an ID to our input tags to have specific styling for them. We talked about the different input types. Text input, you can assign a maximum length of characters available. Talked about password, email, telephone inputs, date inputs, text area. Now that's different from a text input. What if you need to get a paragraph from somebody? That's where you would use the text area input control. Okay, I showed you an example, but this is an example of the text area, and it allows for a specific size, and we've got checkbox, radio controls, and then a submit button. Now here's the text area down here from those examples. And then we have text controls. We put things in different segregated legends within the form control, so they have their own groupings of different areas of the input. And this is a good thing to do, because then it allows you to be able to it's more organized obviously, and you can apply CSS one ID to different areas within your input, and of course it makes it more uniform to the user, so that the user knows exactly what I'm filling out within this set of controls, etc. So again, we're going to be dealing with that here shortly. The action attribute, that is where we send the data. We talked about that. Where does the data that is input go? Where do we send it? What web page do we send it to? And then that web page will have a server-sided script that will accept the data and throw it into a database. All right. The method attribute of the form tag, the action attribute, it tells us where. The method tells us what. The get method will actually use an old school method called well, let's talk about the post. The post is kind of the new way of doing things, and the post method uses a part of the memory that's available to the DOM, the object model of the web page. And so this particular memory is available to every web page in the background implicitly. And so when you post, you're going to be saving that data to that background memory available to your web page that will then be sent to the action element. Now the get method will append the data right into the URL of the website that the data is going to. And that's used an old method. And actually, you know what? Let's give you an example of that. Okay, so this, you probably can't see this as well, but Google is actually using a query string here with the get method. Now you see in the URL, you see this question mark? What that means is the data that I sent in for a search is sent to their server but the data that I input is clearly in the address bar. So it's a security concern, and also this is the old way of doing things called query strings within with the get method and HTML and how to get data over to server-sided scripts. So this is kind of antiquated, uh, but it's still used. There's still reasons for it. Wherever there is data that needs to be sent to a a a background server-sided script, and you want the data to be visible, this is one way, because that data that you input will be sent to the server-sided script through the link to the server-sided script with this question mark, and then all the data that makes up for what you input. Now here's the problem: is when we're sending data that we send through the address bar in the old way cannot handle for let's say I was entering my name. It cannot handle a space. URLs don't contain a space. So when data is sent through the query string and the address bar, it has to go through a method that converts that space to a %20. Uh, it encodes it. And so when that data gets to the server, you see that %20, and it's known as a space. So just know that this is the old way before we had sessions. You can look into HTML sessions and look a little bit about, into what that is about. But that is the ability to store data on a web page using, web page data that's part of the infrastructure of your Chrome, Firefox, and whatnot, your web browser. Uh, and so every web browser has the ability to store data that they see in the HTML page that's input into that background information that through the post event itself. Now this stuff is a little bit more than what you guys need to get into, but it gives you an idea that processing data is not a simple thing. So and then of course we go through that and cover it in higher level courses, but it's just not relevant to what we are learning about and doing. Because when you build a website, or when people build a website and they get data from the form, they then have to build a server-sided script to handle that data, to put it into a database, and that can be done by somebody else. That you can sign up for where you can send your data to be stored. You would set up a whole web. What? Yeah, okay. We're getting into the weeds. I'm going to move on because way too much time on what data processing and form processing. Okay, and of course we can style our forms within our CSS sheet. Now this particular CSS entry is for all forms. Every form on the web page, you see we're using the keyword form here. That means every form that uses this style will have a width of 70% and a zero margin in the first column, and then auto margin on the second column. All right. I think it's time to get into stuff. It's time to play. We're done with our lightning view of PowerPoint. Let's get into the actual meat of everything and start playing around with our instructions for our lab 1. So I have our lab 1 pulled up here. Let's see if the the book pops up, because it looks like it went dull on me. Okay, good. Lab 1. Okay, so we're going to be building a table and a form. Okay, and step 1 is open the template HTML file in your text editor and use it to create a new page with the file name rentals.html. Update the comment with the file name and today's date, and the title element, replace the word template with rentals. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be working on a rentals page from our template. So let's get that brought up. Let's go into our web page, and our website from the last that we dealt with it. We're going to copy our template. We're going to paste it, and then we're going to rename this rentals. Oh, do I already have a rentals? Interesting. Okay, hold on. What happened here? For some reason, I already have a rentals. Okay, you know what we're going to do? I'm just going to rename this one rentals back, and then we're going to continue on with our instructions. Because I don't know where that popped up from. Okay. We're going to copy this. We're going to paste in, and we're going to say that this is now rentals. Okay. All right, now we're going to do an open with Visual Studio Code. All right, and then we have our rentals from our template page. Here's our rentals HTML. And we are going to continue on with our instructions. Let me go ahead and maximize this for when we get into it. And then back to our instructions. We are ready to roll. Okay, let's make sure we got number 1 done. New page, rentals, update the comment with the file name and today's date and the title. Replace the word template with rentals. Good. Add an ID tribute with the value of rental. Okay, guys, I'm going to see you guys soon. Take a little quick break, nice coffee break. You guys may join me by hitting pause. It'll be lightning quick for you. See you soon. All right, we are back online. Let's go ahead and bring up our goodies. Here we go, and here. All right, we are going to begin with number 2. We just finished number 1. Now I am in rentals HTML, and the first thing I need to do is, let's do this. Let's go to the title. It tells us that we need to modify this to rent a border collies. Border collie rentals. That doesn't. Okay. Let's call this one skill rentals, because border collie. No, not rentals. Let's do this. Now I'm getting all border collie rentals. Okay, let's just do it. let's imagine that we can rent a border collie. Okay, all right. We're going there. Okay. Yeah. Now what we want is number 2 says that we need to add an ID attribute. So That's going to be within our main body. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to main, and we're going to have a div element here. Let's just use the one that's kind of already here. And then we're going to inject everything between this div, and we're going to assign this div a specific value so this is what we'll use to determine how, or well, I mean, we'll use this so that we can target this area between these two divs for the rentals and all the information we're going to show for rentals, how it should be shown in the viewport depending on so this is going to be our ID attribute for our styling sheet, and then we're going to give it the attribute rental. So everything between these two guys will be able to be modified. The styling of it will be modified in CSS. Now, then we're going to insert a heading into here, and we're going to say, let's make, I think it says an H2 heading. I've got the instructions here to my side. We're going to insert a heading 2 element within the rental div. We're in the rental div, and we're going to call we rent mini border collies for jobs like geese control in parks. Ah, there we go. That works. That works. I like that. Okay. Or show or trick shows for birthday parties, because border collies can do tricks. So, okay, we didn't make it too weird. I think that's going to work. And then, okay, so we have our heading. Step 4, we're going to actually create our table with a caption. All right, you guys are going to have different ones than me, but I'm going to create 3 table headings within this table. So I'm going to begin with our table tag where the whole table will be, and then I'm going to end with our table tag. And let's go ahead and bring this in so you're not blind trying to squint this information. We have created our table, and what we want is now to create within the table, we need it to have a row. So the way it works is we have rows and we have data in those rows. Now we're going to have a row 1 is going to be for our header. So we're going to have a table row tag then, table row tag for our first row. And within our first row, we're going to have headers in the cells for each thing. And I'm going to say, here, I'm not going to have equipment like you would have. I'm going to have border collie. And then I'm going to have, daily rate will work. Now, I'm going to put in another table header within the table row. And that's going to be TH. And within that table header, this is the second column, and that's going to be the rate of the border collie's daily rate. And then we're going to have another table header that is going to be the weekend rate. Okay, let's save this. I'm going to do Control S. We're going to save that. And then I just want to view that. I just want to see what actually happens with that. So let's go ahead and open up rentals. Come on, Chrome. Do what you're supposed to. All right. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put this into my tabs here. So we, right next to the, there we go. Okay, it looks like we have a column here, or row, excuse me. We can see that we've got some problems, but this is the first column. And we can assign a border, and we can fancy this up and make it a little bit better with our headings or our CSS. And let's I guess we're showing it's working. We are moving along to those steps. Let's go ahead and continue on. We now have something to look at as we are ending, or as we complete our tasks. All right, now we're on to what are we at? We're on number 4. This is going to be our caption, and this is also important for our e-readers to know kind of what the table, you know, or even web scrapers, etc., to kind of know what the whole table is about. What's that data represent? And that's going to go at the beginning of our table tag, right after it. But before our rows, so we're going to put in here caption. And our caption is going to be rental rates. Okay, now we should see that pop up on our web page. I'm going to F5 here to refresh it from my save. Oh, F5 isn't working. Okay, there's our caption. Okay. Now I'm going to continue editing without, you know, there's sometimes where I will look at what we got changed. But now we are done with the caption. We are going to, did I skip a step here? I might have skipped a step. I might have put the table header in, because it looks like step 6 is doing the table header, and we already did that. Well, yeah, of course. I skipped it. Okay, that's fine. We already did that. So that's step 6 already done. Now we're on step 7. We are now on row 1, or row 2. And so we're going to create another table row within the header. And sometimes it's nice to put spaces in between here just in the editor, even though no spaces will be shown in the web page itself. So what we can do is now set up our table row. And this is going to be the actual data. So we're going to have some table data, and each TD is going to represent that column, just like each TH shows a column of table headers. That actually creates 3 columns. We need to match those 3 columns with the data that goes with that header. So I'm going to put in the TD tag. And here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, because we know we need 3 of these guys. And let's make it pretty for now. Let's have our first guy, you know, here, and our row there. And then I'm just going to paste those guys in. And now I'm going to put in the data, and I'm going to say, okay, well, what's the first border collie? Well, I'm going to use my border collie names. The first one's Lucy. And then I've got another one called Maze. And then I've got another one. Oh, wait, no, we're not. That's going to come for the next. Lucy is the border collie. Then the daily rate. Lucy's my special one. So she's going to be $200 a day. And then May's will be $200 a day. Weekend rate will be $300. Lucy's expensive. Okay, that's our first table row. Now we've got this example. Now let's just take that, copy it, and we're going to complete all the rows for each piece of data for each border collie. That one didn't copy in very well. Okay, Maze is my next one. She's a little stinker, but she's younger than Lucy, so she's not as experienced. So she's going to be half the price for tricks or chasing geese. And then I've got one that's kind of I've got another one. Yes, I've got 3 dogs. This one is actually a rescue and is not a border collie, but we're going to pretend that she is because she's so sweet. She's a black lab. Her name is Sage. And Sage is an 85-pound monster. She's going to be the same rate as Maze. Okay. Actually, let's since she's such a monster, she's a little bit more difficult to feed. She's more expensive, so we're gonna price her higher. And of course, you know, a big old 85-pound monster coming after geese would be pretty effective. So yeah, okay, I'm justifying the price of running my dogs out. Yeah, I'm feeling a little weird about that, but that's okay. All right, we got all those. I think so. We got that's step 6. Step 7 is guitars. Step 5 is the rows. And step 8 is completing all of the rows. So you notice that we have a row, end row, data between the rows. This is first row, column 1, column 2, column 3. Second row, column 1, column 2, column 3. Third row, column 1, column 2, column 3. And if we make this kind of go the same, when we look at it, kind of format it, first row, column 1, it's a header, column 2, column 3. And when we assign our CSS, we can assign that header to different looks. Okay, then our second column, third column, fourth column. Okay, Control S. Let's look at what we've got. All right, refresh. There's our table. It's kind of looking a little lonely. It needs to be bigger and loud and proud. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, well, we got more rows. It looks like we got more rows of, oh, I'm supposed to have 6 dogs for rent. We've got rows 5 and 6. Okay, we were going to have to modify this because I know that they're going to, the CSS is going to call out certain things possibly, but I'm going to go ahead and add another 3 rows of dogs that I'm going to make up. And they're going to be just run-of-the-mill names and prices. So I'm going to copy all 3 of these. And see, that's kind of the way it is with programming. Once you have a pattern down, it becomes really a copy-paste type of ordeal. And then when you look at the code of somebody else's sequence of copy-paste, it gets overwhelming. But when you narrow in on the small pieces and then zoom out, it's not as difficult. Okay, so there's another 3, and this one is going to be Jazzy. She's going to be 100 and 100 for weekends because her owner. Okay, I'm just making up stuff. Joe. I don't know why I'm liking J's. And then Ziggy. Okay. And then I'm just going to throw some.
Sure how to help you with that.
Okay. Alexa, be quiet. I named my Alexa Ziggy, so she just talked. So I got to be careful when I say that name. Okay. Control S. Let's go look at it. Refresh. Good. All right. We got our data. That's all the way through steps 8. And we have our table put in. Now we're going to go on to our next step, which is step 9. This is where we are going to set styling for our headers, as I alluded to earlier, for our rental ID. And not only the rental ID, but any heading, any H2 in the rental ID, we're going to assign a specific style. So let's go ahead and complete that step. That's going to be step 9. I'm going to get it over here so I can refer to it. Okay, so we need a style rule for contact and rental and H2. Okay. Does it have us do anything other than contact, rental, and H2? No. Okay. We're going to open up our CSS file. Open that up with Visual Studio Code. And we're going to add another thing for our caption. So we're going to use this, we're going to use a selector, a CSS selector for all captions, it looks like. And the rental, anything with the ID of rental, and it's H2. So let's actually just throw it in here, I guess. Let's do it right here, right above our tablet and our mobile CSS styling. Okay, so here we're going to do for contact and I think it was rental H2. All right. Yeah, make sure you put your comma here. That's a delimiter. Okay. So this will select contact. Oh, not caption. Okay, I had that wrong. Anything with a contact tag and rental and H2. Okay. Now what do we want to have? We want to have Well, let's go back to instructions. It looks like we need to go for the mobile, and we need to add some comments that we're going to have. We're going to add the comment to begin. Oh, okay, step 10. Below the mobile style rule for .map, add the following comment. Okay, and then we're going to add the table styles for the mobile. That's for 11. Okay, let's go ahead and get that done. We're going to go down here. We're going to come back to this later. We're going to go down here, and we're going to go to the mobile. This is for the tablet, I believe. Tablet viewport. Tablet viewport. Tablet viewport. Desktop viewport. Which one are we supposed to put it in? Okay. Let's read those instructions one more time. Below the mobile style rule for .map. Oh, the mobile style rule for .map. Okay, well, we just got to find it. That's the do desktop. Tablet viewport. Ah, here we go. Style rules for mobile viewport. Actually, you know what? I gotta find this. Is this it? All right, guys. You know, I don't want to waste your time trying to figure this out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause this and then figure out where the heck I'm actually putting this, and then I'll come back in a lightning brief second, and we'll continue on. Yeah. So I forgot that by default, everything in our styling is to a mobile site. First and foremost, that's the whole idea, is that our website is accessible and mobile is the default. So in other words, we can put it anywhere in the file except for the areas that we have specifically for tablet and desktop. Those guys. So we're gonna throw it up here because it's the default, the native behavior. We can put it up here below this map, so you know that works. We can even move this up, but you know, just because we have a region, you know, essentially it's everything in this file at the very beginning. We default to mobile, so unless it's in those sections that are tablet, it's by default how it's going to be. So and we're going to go ahead and add it in right here. Now, what are we adding in again? Let's bring this up. We're adding our table. This is step 10. We just got done with part of step 9 because we still haven't added in any formatting for step 9. But step 10, we're going to put in our table. So any table on our web page or in our web pages is going to have this styling. It doesn't matter, you know, every table. So this is kind of like a universal. So we're going to have a 1px, 1 pixel border, solid, and then the color is going to be our purple. And then let's actually look at this. Let's do Control S and bring up our web page so we can see kind of what happens when we add a table to it. Let's do our refresh. Okay, see there? And we haven't added, just the table has the border, but when we add a border to the cells, it can double that up, and we can come back later and play with that possibly. But what we want to do is we want to assign the border collapse attribute so that when we do add a border for the cells, it doesn't double up. So in our CSS, we're going to do border dash collapse. And let's play with that a little bit later, possibly if we have time or I remember. Did I spell those right? No, I didn't. For some reason, I don't know how to spell collapse. Border dash collapse. Yeah, I misspelled that one too. No? No? COLLAPSE. Okay. And then margin 0 and auto margin for the next one. Okay, and then width. We're going to go with 100% width. We're going to fill up the screen, or we're going to fill up the element that's inside. So it's going to fill up the div that the table is inside. Okay, Control S. Let's look at it. Okay, we got collapsed border, so it's not showing that the border. And this is going to reduce the doubled borders. Okay, now let's do this. Okay. That is for the mobile. That's step 11. Hold on, I'm going to remove my email. Actually, I'll just come back to that. Here, actually, let's get rid of that. So we're not getting dings in the background. And then now we're on. Okay. That's a lot of code. Oh, I didn't know I could just copy it. So that's all step 11 is all of these are going to go in. So let's do this. It's not going to let me copy it, is it? All right. Okay, it's going to be a stinker. All right, that's fine. We are going to be reduced to typing a. Oh, wait, no. Yeah. Let's type it in. Oh, well. We're probably going to have some typos, but that's fine. Let's type all that in. I've got it off to the side. So, caption. And I'm going to throw this in lightning fast. And we got all this stuff to throw in that is in that instruction. And I'm going to actually do that off camera. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, I've got these typed in from the instructions, caption. We're setting the caption to have a specific font size. It's going to be in bold. It's going to have a 1% border around it, or not a 1% padding around it. And then the table header and the table data are going to share the same attributes for the border, and then a 2% padding. And then we're going to have every table header have a specific background color. um, that matches with, it looks like pretty close to this color. I think those are the same. Oh, the border and the background color are going to be the same. And then the table row, every other, that's what this is. This is for every other um, row, and that's what that nth child is. And we want the odd rows. For all the odd rows, we're going to have our background color differentiate a bit. Every odd row. So table row 1, then 2, then 3. 1 and 3 would have a different background color than 2. So this is just like Excel, where you can have different colors in the background so you can follow the rows a little bit better. That's what this heading does. So let's go ahead and Control S, save that. And let's make this, I'm going to make this black. Just so we have a border. I want a border. I just want to look at it and play with it. So we'll Control S that and then look at what we got. Okay. So you see, even though we did the border collapse, we've got the double borders. I'm wondering if that border collapse is actually working appropriately. It doesn't look as if it is. I wonder if I misspelled that because it's not really seeing it. Well, let's see if it pops up. No. Something's not working appropriately there. We could fix it by drilling into this, and you know what? We may come back to it. Let's see what's going on there and why we have that double border. I just wanted to test it to see if it was behaving right, and we could have a misspelling or something. Let's go ahead and continue. They may have just handled the problem by doing this. Yeah, so the background color of the border is the same as that. Let's see. Control S. We may solve that here as we progress through the instructions. We'll come back to that. So that'll be something that we fix later on. And let's continue on with our instructions for now. Because evidently something's wrong with them. Or, yeah. Okay, so is the every other thing working? Yes. See how the different colors? The first one, and you say, oh, Mr. B, that's not an odd one. Well, this is treated as border 0. This is treated as border 1, border 2. Everything's 0 based in computer science. So, that'll be something that if you're going into that field, you'll become, familiar with. Let's see, next bit of instructions. We are through here. I think we're moving on to number 12. Let's go ahead and get into that. Number 12. That's where we are going to go into, we're going to be coming back to our CSS here. for right now, for number 12. Oh no, number 12, within the desktop media query below the last style rule, add a new comment with the text below the comment. Add a style rule for the table selector that sets the width to 70%. Okay, it looks like we're not quite done with that yet. Let's go ahead and look at number 12. And evidently, one thing that I know that we need for our text in the for the header, I believe the header didn't particularly, instructions didn't finish up with what we actually needed for it. And so let's go back to that header one and complete it, because we want to have our header centered, and we have the styling sheet, you know, pick out the header of the particular table up here. I believe we had it up here somewhere. Where are you? That's what we started out with. We'll come back to that. Caption, table height. There. Okay, what we want is we want to align the heading text in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and just verify that that's done. So let's go here. It looks like it kind of defaulted that way, but now it's specific, because when this auto sizes, when the size is changed, we want the text to be in the middle for the heading, even though it kind of it appears that it defaulted that way, but now we're being explicit with it. And I think then our last step is the number 12. Number 12, okay, so this is where in the desktop viewport, what we're going to do is we're going to allow the table to take up more size on the screen. This is where we can test for that header, making sure that the heading, you know, making sure it's in the center. So we're going to go into the desktop viewport portion of our CSS, and that's going to be down here. And within it, we're going to override the default table size that's kind of scrunched up like it is, and we're going to allow the table width to be 70% within the div element. Now we might have some other sizing issues that we got to deal with, but again, you know, let's see what actually this does. And what we'll do here is for number 12, we're going to say in our viewport for the desktop, we're going to say table, and every table that's in the desktop, we want a width of 70% within its divider. Okay, semicolon, good. Control S. Okay, let's see if it changes the side, because we're on the desktop. Yep, there it is. Okay, there's our 70% size. And our labels are centered. And in our mobile, it'll show it scrunched up, of course. This only happens for that. Now that's number 12, so let's go to 13. Yeah, let's get on to where I was supposed to be. Okay. 11, 12 is done. 13. Okay. we need to go to the contact HTML file. So the contact HTML file, let's see. We need to insert a new div element with a, is it in the contact, insert a new div element with an ID attribute of form. Follow the contact div within the main element, insert a heading 2 element within the form div, and include the text. Okay, we're done with our table. Now, well, I mean, sort of. We're going to come back to the CSS stuff. What we're now dealing with is the form. We're creating our form. So we're gonna edit the contact HTML file. So let's go back to our website folder. Contact us. I'm gonna say open with Google, no, not Google Chrome. Yeah, we're gonna be testing it. So that's the contact us, and then we need to open that with Visual Studio Code as well. Okay, and we're going to add a form in the main, and that is going to be a div ID, and within this div we're going to have we're going to have our form. So this is our div. We're going to give it an ID so we can assign some CSS to it. Okay, now this is the region that our form is going to live in. We shouldn't see anything really much happen. Let's actually see what happens to the web page. I don't expect it to have anything on it because we're just basically creating an empty form with nothing in it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a form class. Well, let's get back to the instructions. Div ID equals form. And then we have the next instruction, which is to create a form class. And then, or form. Interesting. Okay, we're creating a div. Within the div, we're going to insert a form, but it might be missing a step here. Oh, insert a heading 2 element. Okay, so we need an H2 inside of the div. Is it an H2? Okay, yeah, it's an H2. Okay, so inside our div, that's going to be the area for our form. We're going to have an H2, which is just going to give us a title for the form, or a contact us title, and then below that will be the form. Now our next thing is, the next step is to create a form. Now this is where we actually create the form, and it's going to end with a form closer. So let's do a form. There's our form closer. You see I'm making room in between the start of the form and the end of the form. Now I'm going to actually assign a class to this form. The class that I'm going to assign it is a form grid class that then we're going to use for our I believe we've already put some CSS in for this type of class, CSS attribute class, which is form grid. And we end the form. Now we get into the actual stuff. We're going to do a field set, and so we're going to create different fields, And within different fields, we're going to have different inputs and labels. So the user can handle different field areas, and everything's kind of nice and segregated appropriately. So the next thing we're going to do is, what is this field of form inputs? So we're going to create a field set and its closer. And what we want is a legend, something to describe the field set. That is going to be the heading of the field set. This is going to be for customer information input. And then within that field set of customer information input, we're going to have a label. And it's going to be for, and we're going to assign it a first name label. This is going to be F name. This is going to be the actual name of the label. And we can use that in the CSS to change its styling. Now the text of the label is going to show first name. Okay, now let's just look at this. We're going to have a legend, a field set, and within the field set, we're going to have our label, and it's going to say first name. Control S. Let's go to the web page and refresh it. And you see how it has the lines like what was in the PowerPoint, and then just the label first name that's been given the F name ID or attribute, or not attribute ID, just the name of what it is. Okay. Next is we have an input type. We're going to have the user input their first name. So let's go ahead, and I'm wondering why that's being a stinker. Okay, whatever. I don't think it is. It's fine. Okay, now after the first name, directly in line to it, we're going to have our input type. And our input type is going to be a text input. And so that's going to be just a one-line input box. And it's going to be given the name F name, which is where we assign what the label is for here, which is the F name input. All right. Input type equals text. Name equals F name. Okay. F name. And those need to match. ID is equal to F name. Yeah, I figured that they were going to assign it the F name ID. So we use F name to reference both the label and the text for CSS. Okay, now we're going to close that. And, oh, I need to close it outside. Oh, I hit the insert key. Don't hit the insert key. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to have some more field set, but let's look at this, and then I'm going to do I'm going to try to do a copy paste here from some of the code so that we don't have to sit here and type some of this out. Let's see if it'll work. Okay, so magically we're going to have the other one. Might have some issues, but it's the same stuff. We're doing L name for a last name text input. We're doing an email for an input type of email. And then we call it, and we give it the ID of email. And then we are getting a phone with the input type of telephone. So these different input types and IDs we can use to style these particular input labels and boxes. So let's look at this now, field set. I'm going to do control set all filled out. Oops, that shouldn't be there. Okay, let's refresh this. Okay, so customer information, first name, last name, email, phone. Good. Now we have another step, and that is, it looks like we're going to have another field set that's going to list interests, musical interests. And guys, this, I don't think I'm going to be able to frame this in border collie terms. So I'm just going to throw it in. So we're on step, I think it's, let's see. Step 13 has you end it, but guys, these steps have you end things. You know, I've noticed that. You notice how that I'm ending things right off the bat and then putting in between. So I started the form and I ended the form right off the bat. Your instructions have you do it separately. Don't get in that habit. Start your form, end your form, put in between. Because if that habit becomes too ingrained in you, it's a bad habit and it's going to cost you time in the long run. So start with good development habits. Start a field set or a field or an input or a tag, an HTML tag, any kind of tag. Start it and end it immediately. Then fill in between for what you're going to have. So I've just looked ahead and they're ending stuff when I've already ended it. It looks like we're going to have another field set here. So right outside this field set, we're going to put another field set. And this is the field set that we have. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this pretty. You guys from the instruction can type these in and then we'll look at it. This one is for a checkbox. We have a label for a piano. Now let's go ahead and look at these labels. They start and begin. Then we have the input type. Now, is that supposed to be nested in there? What I'm looking at is the piano label. It looks like we're nesting the input type inside of the label itself. And that doesn't look appropriate. Piano lessons, label for piano. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. But then we inject, oh, okay. That's interesting. It looks like, all right. So it looks like they're embedding the input type within the label itself for this particular example. So we have our input type. Piano lessons. And then we end the label. Is that even right? Okay, let's look at this. All right, label 4. Okay. Piano lessons. Input type. They always change stuff all the time and add more things that you can do that you couldn't with each version of the browser, and as this technology continues to be, developed. So it looks like this is, it doesn't look good to me, but they're actually embedding the input into the label itself. I think something's missing though. There might be, okay, well, let's just try it out. Let's just see what it looks like. I'm going to go back to the, okay, so we're on this step right here. Okay. First name, email, phone. All right, that's great. I'm interested in label for guitar. Then they put the input type. Then they end the input type. Okay, that's what I'm missing right there. That close. So let's go back here. Guitar lessons. So this is the input type. Now this is, let me look at this again, because this is being a stinker. Let's compare this to the actual instructions. Let's see. Name equals interest, ID guitar list, and the input type within the label itself. Value equals guitar lessons, close, then guitar lessons, then add. So this is the label right here. And we're embedding the input within the label tag. Let's look and see if ours is similar. Because after it sets the ID value and then the name, the value of the input, then it prints the label itself and then ends the label. So let's look if that's very, very close to the embedding of that. Okay. Yeah, that's the input type embedded within the label. Here's the label, and then we end it. So the book is just showing you a different way that you can do it between them. Okay, let's get into this. I'm gonna make sure that I show that, you know, I want this to kind of look a little bit different here so that it's not so angry on the eyes. And that's another thing that is helpful as you're developing. Let's make it kind of look close to each other so that we can pick out all the delimiters, all the juicy stuff, everything. So, okay. All right, and that's our second field set. And I'm not going to make this border collie central. I'm just going to throw this in there, call it good. Control S. This is our input type for a checkbox embedded in the label for guitar. And we give it guitar less ID so that we can grab a hold of both the CSS for the label and the checkbox. And we can specify the label guitarless, of ID guitarless, and assign that in the CSS specifically for that label. All right, let's test this and see if we got something that actually looks like some input fields. Okay, here we go. I'm interested in guitar lessons. See the checkbox here? Okay, good. That takes us all the way to the last step, which is we're going to have a submit button. And that's going to be outside of the field sets. So this is part of the form at large. And this is where you would, you can assign an action. We're not going to assign an action yet. You can assign an action so that this data is sent to the sessions memory, the background memory that's available to you. Or you can send it through the get method with the query string, or the post method to a data, server-sided script that takes the data and adds it to a database or does something with the data. And that's for back-end development. And we're definitely not going to get into the weeds there. Okay, we want to submit a submit input type. Let's give it the ID of submit, and then let's give it the heading with a capital S. This is actually setting what's inside the button text. So it could say button on the button, but we're going to say that the button has a capital S and says submit inside of it. We'll look at that here in a little bit. Then I'm going to assign it a class called button. And that way I can assign specific CSS attribute or styling attributes to anything that is a button that's assigned that class on any form that we have. Okay. All right, Control S. Let's go look at it. And there's our button, submit. It does nothing. Look, notice the capital S. All right, that takes us all the way to, I think that was step 17. Yeah. Okay, now let's go into our instructions. Kind of get an idea of where we're at. Close this down. We're all the way down to 18. Now we're going to go in and we're going to do styling rules. So we're going to go back to our styling file. That's a styles.css. And then what rules are we going to apply to them? Let's see. Create a style rule for the field set and input selectors. That sets the bottom margin to 2%. Okay, so we're going to go through steps A, B, C, and D real soon here. All right, let's continue on. We're going to start with adding a 2% margin to the field set and input fields. And that's going to be in your styles.css, but we're not going to have it. It's going to be default for all, so we're not going to put that in the viewport areas for tablet or desktop. That's just going to be, so we can put it, anywhere as long as we don't put it in there. So let's go ahead and I'm just picking a place, it's not in those special areas. So we're going to do this. We're going to add a comment so that we know that these are style rules for form elements. Okay, and then what we got to do is we got to 18A is create a style rule for 2% margin bottom. Okay, so we're going to, and if it's for all field states or all field sets. So we're going to have the field set and any input box that we have. We want the margin to be at the bottom, margin bottom, to be 2% of the 2% of the area that it is within its div element. Okay, that's done. 18B, create a style rule for the field set legend selector. Okay, so let's see. We have a legend selector. What would that be for? Any legend or heading that we have for the actual areas of each field set. So we're going to set up the field set legend. So any legend within a field set. Okay, for that we're going to say any field set legend. Now notice that there is no comma here because we're saying it's the field set legend. Here it's for any field set and any input. Here this is just one thing, field set legends. Any field set legends, we want to have a bold We want it to be bold because remember, this is the field set for every grouping of the form, the input boxes. So font, weight, bold. Okay. Then we want font size to be 1.25 em. And then 18C is create a style rule for any label. Okay. We want to set the display to block. Interesting. Let's look at W3 Schools on what block is. HTML block display. Okay. Interesting. A block has some white space above and below. Tolerance no HTML elements except for. Okay. All right. I think we've already covered what block is in previous videos, so I don't want to get too far in the weeds. It's always good to kind of look into what's available. Okay, so it automatically adds margin before and after, and it always takes up the full width. So it's always. So you know what? Let's play around and let's add this 18 label display block, and let's see what it actually does. So let's go ahead in here. Let's look at the before and after and see if we can actually tell the difference. Okay, that's what we have so far. Now I'm going to add that particular label, any label that we have in our forms, all labels, display it with the block attribute. Add padding to the top, and we want 3% padding. Okay. Well, look at that. Sure changes things a little bit, doesn't it? So the block really kind of made it stretch out and take up all the space regardless. I imagine that we're going to fix that as we progress so that we are specific with how wide these elements are going to be. Before they were defaulting to inline, but now they're saying, hey, we take up all the space on the screen from left to right and block out anything else. Make sure you add a whole bunch of spaces in between, each element. Okay, so, all right, now we're going to give it some instructions on how to behave differently. But let's look and see if we can't learn more about that block. What more? We saw what it does. Okay, it looks like these are the elements that block can be applied to. Let's see about this. No, that doesn't show us block. You know what? We're getting in the weeds. Let's get back on track. Our video is too long anyways. So let's continue on with our instructions. All right, we are on 18D. That is to add some CSS to the submit. So any form and the submit, any form with, and whatever has a submit ID in that form, we want these attributes. And I'm gonna grab those from over here and throw them in. Oops. And form and submit is all one. There's no comma in between. Okay, so that's going to change the color and the padding around the submit button. So it'll have a different background color. You guys can test it. I'm going to move on. We're getting a little bit lengthy here in our stride. Okay, tablet viewport, style rule, form. And the style CSS, we're on 19. Within the tablet media query, insert a comment with the text tablet viewport style rule for the form element below the map style rule. So we're going to go within the tablet query, and within the media, insert a comment with the text tablet viewport style rule for the form element below the map style rule. Then create a style rule for the form selector and set the width. Okay. We want to specify how the form is going to behave in a tablet. And so we want the width to be, it looks like 70% is what the instructions on 19 are giving us. And we're going to do that within the portion of the CSS file that is for tablets. So that would be this tablet viewport. And then we're going to add style rules for forms. So we have we label what it is that this CSS style rules are for all forms within, for every form within a tablet. So this will override the default value of the way it works and assign the width to 70%. Now we should have a changed background color, and we're not testing this, a changed background color for the submit button. Here it is. And now we got that, we're good. Okay, let's continue on. Step 19 is done. Let's go back to our instructions. Done. Oh, desktop. Okay, we got to do the desktop. That's 20A. So we're going to do the desktop viewport, and we're going to assign the form grids. We're going to allow it to be a little bit it looks like we're going to give it some gaps between the columns and the forms. Okay, that's going to look like this. So this is going to be step 20. We're going to put this, now this needs to be in the desktop viewport portion. I think we got the desktop all the way down here. Okay, and this is our desktop. This is how it's going to look. We're going to assign any form grid inside the desktop to these attributes. Now this should show up for us. And let's look at how it behaves. So I'm going to go over here. I saved it, reset. Didn't really change much. Looks like maybe some spacing. Okay, now we're going to assign a rule. Let me see that line. Let's see, what is step 20? Step 20. We did 20. We need to do 20B. This one right here. We're going to set the button class selector. So any button within the desktop is going to have a specific span size within its column. So let's go ahead and add that into the CSS. We're going to put that down here. Okay, Control S. Let's go see what it looks like. Didn't really change much. Okay. Okay. Refresh, just making sure. All right. That's 20. Where are we at now? 21. Okay, we've been doing the good coder practices, check for errors, open the rentals, open the contact, view the form of the contact page. Okay, so now let's get everything, set up. I know that we've probably got some problems and some errors somewhere. So I'm going to look into problems and errors real quick off camera. And then we'll come back and address those as needed. So let's look at now. We need to finish up all the links. We got to add the links, the new contact us, not that one. We got to add the rentals. Is the rentals already there? This is the rentals page. Does it already have, it has there. So we got to add this to everything. We got to add rentals to every web page. This is going to be kind of weird. Rent a collie. Okay. Now this needs to be in every file, including our template. So let's go in here. And we're going to go into our template. Yeah, that's fine. Template lessons is already opened. No, rentals is already open. Need to open lessons. Instructors. And then most importantly, the index. Okay, so let's go down here. Throw in our link, rentals, which is our new one. Control S. Contact us. We're going to add this to the links. Control S, save it. Okay, is that the last one? I did index instructors. And I just do it to every file that you got to add that extra HTML file that we got. Control S. or link, web page link, the rentals page. Control S. Did I do it for the template yet? Nope. Control V, Control S. And then we're going to have rentals.html. That's good. Okay, so everything's saved. Now let's just kind of do a quick run through on the web page with everything kind of shut down and saved. I'm going to go here, refresh this. You know, I'm gonna see how well we did on this with the solution file, and then come back and make sure that kind of we're on track correctly and there's no errors. I'll be doing that shortly. But we got, oh, we don't have the inside of rentals. We don't have the, oh, we're on rentals, so it doesn't matter. Rent-a-collie, we're already on Rent-a-collie. Good. No, it's, what is it? It's the contact us that doesn't have the Rent-a-collie. So let's go back to contact us. Good. Control S. Done. That's why I kind of just shut everything down and do a little test. Let's do this. Good. Home. Home. Lessons. Instructors. Contact us. Okay. All right, that's all the steps. Let me go do a quick check and make sure we did everything properly and there's no errors. And I'll come back and report to you how well we did and how well I did. And we'll discuss, or we'll finish up. All right, now let's go ahead and look at some error corrections. This is how let's show you how things should look. You know, there's going to be some typos and errors, and that's going to be one thing that is a struggle for everybody. So the way that this should look is like this, and that's for rentals. And contact, it should look like this. Now this is for a desktop site. So we've got a few issues. This center is working, but the table is not being centered. And then our contact list, it looks like these should be left and right in two columns, which I remember us setting that attribute in CSS. Then I went into my CSS and I noticed that, okay, I've got some red here. And one thing that I'm going to fix is this right here. It looks like I got two of those. So that's an error. So I fixed that. And it looks like for some reason this property is not, it's not being liked. So let's look at the table. Looks like this is the solution file, by the way. Let's look at that particular attribute, and I think it's for, I think in the other CSS file it's for all tables. So let's do this. Where is the error? It's on table. So let's do a Control F, find table, and then just do not table. Yeah, okay. Okay, so border collapse. For some reason, we're not having an error there. And I'm like, well, okay, why are we having an error? Well, maybe we didn't do something before or something like that. So let's go over here. Oh, look at that. So I'm looking at mine, and I should have caught that. I didn't end that. And that's why it wasn't behaving appropriately. I didn't end that. So that makes this good, but then I get a red here. Oh, look at, same thing. But then I didn't do it here. And then I find out, oh, I kind of really messed that up. That's why the table wasn't behaving correctly. So let's do Control S. This is the solution. Margin 0 auto, that's for the two columns of the table as default. and we got the classboard, and that's why it was showing the double lines earlier, and we moved on. So that fixes that issue. So let's go back to, I think I controlled S. This one, that's the solution for this one. Okay, now let's look at mine again. Let's refresh this. Still got some problems there on the contact us. That's fine. Rent-a-collie. Ah, and we have single bordered like we should. Okay, we found the bug for rental rates. That's taken care of. Now, let's go find the bug for the contact us. That's going to be somewhere in the CSS as well. And I'm going to look for red first. Is there a place where I've got some kind of typo? No. Now this is the point where I would do a deep dive at figuring out the error. I could, start messing around with the particular settings for the table within a desktop, etc. And for that, I'm not going to do that on camera. I'm going to look into it, and we may, let's see how far down the rabbit hole it goes, and I'll be back. All right, so yeah, I went through the rest of the CSS, trying to find why that form was not behaving appropriately. I could not find any red, and then I got to think, well, you know what? Maybe I forgot to type something in my HTML. And so I'm just going to go into my HTML, and this is why editors are important, because they're going to find where your syntax and your semantics, syntax being what you write, semantics how you write it, of your code or your markup language, it's going to pop out at you. And so then I got into here, and I started looking for red, and if I remember right, this is that was the solution. But when I was typing this in, the red even popped up. And so if you guys see red when you're typing stuff in, I was moving along and getting things, but obviously this was a problem, and I saw the red coming out at me. So it even, hey, this is a real problem, and that's because I just forgot the equal sign. Just simple. And then of course that attribute form grid was not being that class form grid was not being added to the form that we create here, and so we couldn't select it in the CSS. And so in the CSS, the selection for that is it's a form grid one. In here, it's in the desktop query. That's the tablet. Right here, form grid, right here. That's where it says column 1 automatically size, column 2 automatically size. Okay, now that should get us to where we need to be, and looking great. Let's go test it and make sure, of course, hey, I showed you kind of how it looks in the solution. So, make sure you check yourself as well. I know you will. So we're going to look at contact us in Chrome. And there is what we expect, the 2 columns. It looks like maybe this should be centered. So something must be going on there. You know what? I'm gonna fix that offline. We are done, you guys. I'll leave this as a challenge for you, and I will complete that. I'll center it and get it done. But yeah, 2 hours of video, that's too much. I hope you guys took a break in between. Make sure you go check your errors and everything that you got in properly. I'll fix this little snag and we'll move on. Looking forward to talking to you on our next lesson. Thank you very much. Goodbye.